Hi, this is Frank DeMore with the Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, connecting the dots between Bible prophecy and current events. And today I want to cover a little bit about the Antichrist signs. And you're going to see why I am going to cover this. But before I do that, I want to go right into the Word of the Lord. I'll show you why it is that I'm connecting the dots between the current events and what the Lord has told us to keep on the watch for, according to his own signs. So let me first of all get into Revelation. Revelation chapter 7 verse 1, and I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 6 here to begin with. One of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, and I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters." Well, here's the prostitute, as you can see in the photo here. The prostitute is symbology for this false church that will be riding on the Antichrist, who is the beast. And the many waters that the scriptures are talking about right here is symbolic for the people of the world. So we know that the Antichrist is going to control the people of the world. There will be a false church riding with this beast as well. It goes on in verse 2, with her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. And then the angel carried me away into the spirit into the desert, where I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and 7 heads and 10 horns. Now the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and by the way, these are the exact same colors as the Roman Catholic Church. You've probably seen the cardinals and the Pope with these colors. Of course, they are in Rome. And was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls, all of which the Catholic Church also has. And she held a golden cup in her hand. Now, if you've ever been to a Catholic Mass, you know that during the service, the priest will hold up the golden cup, and it's part of the service itself there when they're getting ready for communion. So all of these things we see within the Catholic Church. So filled with the abomination things and the filth of her adulteries. This title was written on her forehead: Mystery Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. And we know that this false church, under the direction of, obviously, this false prophet who will be aligning with the Antichrist on the last days, or the beast, as you see in this symbol here, this picture of the symbol of what we're reading, that it is definitely going to be part of this revived Roman Empire. We know this from chapter 2 of Daniel, chapter 7 of Daniel, and also in chapter 17. So let me go down and read a little bit more here, and you'll see the connection. Revelation 17:9, it says, "And here's the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads," you remember that it talked about the 7 heads right here. Now he's going to tell you exactly what they are. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. So there's no problem discerning what this scripture is talking about. It's talking about the 7 heads are 7 mountains, which the woman sitteth. In other words, there's a place where this false church is sitting, right? We'll take a look down in verse 18 of that same chapter. It says, "And the woman which thou sawest is that great city," right? "Which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Well, obviously, the city with the 7 mountains is Rome, Italy. And so it only stands to reason that we're seeing the exact same colors as prophesied by Jesus in Revelation chapter 17. We see not only the colors, we see the golden cup and his precious pearls and the stones and the wealth of the Catholic Church here. So we know that the Antichrist is going to rise from the revived Roman Empire. He'll have a seat in Rome along with this false church, this idolatrous church, if you will. Now, Jesus gives us signs of what the Antichrist would be like, and he told us what to look for. And if you've read the scriptures, you'll know what to look for. For example, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, it states, "He opposes and exalts himself over everything that is called God or worshipped, and even sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." So this man is going to cause great blasphemy, saying that he is God. And of course, that will be during the tribulation period. Now again, there's other references you will see here in Daniel and Revelation. First of all, let's take a look at Daniel. It said he will speak boastfully. We see this in Daniel's prophecy. And he will cause craft to prosper. So we know that whatever he's going to do, he's going to do it. He's just going to have that personality, would be able to do it. He's going to be rich, prospering, as he makes his mark during the tribulation. Now, another important item to understand about the revived Roman Empire and this Antichrist is coming is found in Daniel chapter 2, verses 41 through 43. "Whereas you saw the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with the ceramic clay. And as the toes and of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile." In verse 43, "As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere one to another, just as iron does not mix with clay." So we know that in the last days, the revived Roman Empire will come back again. We know this, and we know that the toes that are in reference, these toes, and it's also marked in the book of Daniel that there's 10 toes. They are not going to mix well. They're not going to adhere one to another. And so when the revived Roman Empire comes, there's going to be problems. There's going to be some kind of split. They're not going to hold together. This is exactly what we're seeing coming from the European Union. Now we know that the revived, or the Revelation in chapter 7, that the false church will sit on the beast. We just showed you that. Of course, we now know that's the city of Rome, the city with the 7 hills. Make it very easy for us to understand. This means that the Antichrist will come from Rome, which is obviously Italy. Now Daniel saw all the nations from his time all the way to the last kingdom, which he says will be, or he shows us, a reborn Roman Empire. Now the European Union is that reborn Roman Empire, and Italy has been a major player in the EU since it started. Now for example, when you go to my book, you'll be able to read chapter 2 there. You can download it today for free. And in there, I'll show you the events that have been taking place since 1954, when they first decided that they were going to make moves to bring in a revived Roman Empire, or bring in the nations that used to be in that old Roman Empire. And it's already done. So now one of the major signs of the end times, fact is, it is the rebirth of the Roman Empire. A major sign, as a matter of fact. So watching the signs concerning the political climate with the EU should be taken with special interest. Now, I go down to write for you why I've been looking at a certain man. I'm going to explain this. There is a man that I've been keeping track of, and for good reason, as you will see. The man is a Roman from Italy by the name of Silvio Berlusconi. Now, Berlusconi is the former prime minister of Italy. He is one of the most powerful men in all of Europe, and he is one of the richest men in the world. And of course, we know that if he's going to have one of these qualities or characteristics of the Antichrist, obviously he's going to have to prosper, and Berlusconi is definitely doing that, since he is the richest, one of the richest men in the world. Now, one would think that if the Antichrist is to rise from the revived Roman Empire, then that man of sin should hold some type of high-ranking office in the European Union, which is obviously the revived Roman Empire. since every one of the nations, when you take a look, that are in the European Union, of which there's 27 of them right now, these are the nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire. Now, Berlusconi held a high-ranking position in the Italian government until last year. Now, Berlusconi, and I'm quoting this from an article, Berlusconi was forced to resign as prime minister in November last year as the Italian bond yields surged at the height of the Eurozone debt crisis. Now, Mario Monti took Berlusconi's place as the premier. It has only been a year since Monti took Berlusconi's place, and on December the 8th of 2012, obviously this month, the Prime Minister Mario Monti told the Italian president Saturday he plans to resign following the sudden loss of support from, here we go, guess who, Silvio Berlusconi's party, paving the way for early elections. Now, as I said, if the Antichrist is going to rise from Rome, he's going to have power. He's going to have a position. And Berlusconi right now is out of position, but he's posturing himself again to move into position. And this man is known as the comeback kid. Now let me show you, and I'm talking about Berlusconi now. Let me get right into the article. You'll see it right here. You see, this article was written in June 30th of 2012. Silvio Berlusconi, comeback kid, Italy's ex-PM, leverages the euro crisis. Now look at this. Silvio Berlusconi is back in Italian headlines, but not for his and this is an Italian word for corruption, trials. The 75-year-old media mogul is setting the stage for a full-fledged political comeback. After weeks of speculation, Berlusconi finally addressed his party's faithful on June 27th, assuming them that he would likely run for the prime minister in the next elections slated for 2013. All right, so what we have here is the man who has the qualities or the characteristics of the Antichrist running parallel to what we see in Scripture. And this is why I'm pointing to what's going on with Silvio Berlusconi, is because now it looks like he's going to be entering, or he's going to enter for the election of 2013. And that becomes an important issue when we're watching him. Now, I wanted to bring us up to you. You see, this is the article from today, December the 19th of 2012. Headlines: Berlusconi says Italy may be forced to leave the Eurozone. Now, keep in mind, when I talked about, let me go back to my site here. When I talked about the scripture in Daniel, that Daniel showed us that they're not going to hold together, we see through let me go back. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one. When we see what's going on here, Berlusconi says that Italy may be forced to leave the Eurozone. There's problems in the Eurozone. There's debt problems. And there constant talk for the last year of the Eurozone breaking up. So we see the parallel from Daniel chapter 2, verses 41 through 43, not adhering together. Now here we have a Roman, Berlusconi, and I'm going to show you some of the things that he has said. I mean, it'll make the back of your hair stand up. The former Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, said on Tuesday Italy would be forced to leave the Eurozone unless the European Central Bank gets more powers to ensure the lower borrowing cost. Berlusconi, who announced this month he will again lead the People of Freedom Party in the national election expected in February, said on a talk show on state broadcast RAI that the ECB should become a lender as last resort for the currency bloc. So this gives you a little bit more information about Berlusconi. The 76-year-old media tycoon has made similar remarks in the past about the possibility of Italy or even Germany leaving the euro, but has often at least partially rectified them later. Berlusconi is already campaigning hard for the election with a spat of television interviews in an attempt to close the wide gap with the centric-left Democratic Party, which is polling at above 30%, some 14% or points above the PLO. Now, Berlusconi was forced to resign as prime minister in November of last year, and I talked about why, of course, the bond, the yields there was a problem. But here we have the comeback kid coming back, has made an announcement that he's going to run for this high office again in Italy. Very significant. So let me go back to my site. We'll continue on here. There's a video that I'll play for you so that you can watch it about Berlusconi. And of course, bear with me because I'm going to give you some of the comments that Berlusconi has said to show you why it is that I'm really watching him.
It's one of the fastest growing cities in America, but for the people of Charlotte, North Carolina, a thriving economy is just the beginning. See how Siemens Light Rail is helping build a greater quality of life and a more sustainable city. Visit Siemens.com/answers.
Now, Silvio Berlusconi is seeking a third term as Prime Minister as this weekend's general election. The billionaire businessman and former Prime Minister leads the opinion polls, but the contest looks increasingly close. His main rival, Silvio Berlusconi, the former mayor of Rome, has cast himself as Italy's Barack Obama.
I cannot understand why Italy doesn't have the same economic growth as other European countries. The answer to this question is in the implosion and the tiredness of a political and institutional system that does not support growth or let it develop.
I understand why Veltroni, who based his electoral campaign on lies, why he could not pronounce my first and last name. He doesn't say my name because he is so used to lying. By saying Silvio and Berlusconi, he could have a stroke.
Now, the election comes 3 years early after Romano Prodi stepped down as Prime Minister when his coalition government collapsed in January. Joining us now is Marco Annunziata, Chief Economist at UniCredit Market.
All right, I'm going to stop it there just to show you this was the comeback kid, Berlusconi, and he came back and he won the election. And so he does have a lot of influence in Italy, and he's using the problem with the debt crisis right now, what's going on with the euro, to try to forge the Italians to come with him again and talk about leaving the euro and going back into their old currency. Now let me share with you some of the things that Berlusconi has said. Let me go right to him. I'll get right to the... let me click this one. I'm going to show you a current video first. We'll pick it up here so we can play it. I'll go right here. Just take me a second.
First rule of taking the world by surprise: do something the world will actually notice. Introducing the entirely new Ford Fusion with an available turbocharged EcoBoost engine and a hybrid that doubles the city fuel efficiency of the average midsize sedan. It's an entirely new idea of what a car can be.
Just 1 year.
All right.
1 year.
So this is the this is going to be the news that shows the current premier is quitting, and it's going to have some news about this comeback kid who is now going to be running again for office in 2013.
Year after Mario Monti replaced Silvio Berlusconi as Italy's premier and helped pull the country back from the brink of financial disaster, he says he'll resign. Monti has told Italy's president it's because of the sudden loss of support from Berlusconi's conservative Freedom People Party. the office of Italy's president, Giorgio Napolitano, announced Monti's decision, and it came just hours after Berlusconi, who quit a year ago in disgrace, said he's aiming for a comeback and will run again for premier. Monti met for 2 hours with Napolitano. According to the president's office, Monti said that without the support of Berlusconi's party, he could no longer effectively govern Italy, which is mired in recession and trying to emerge from the Eurozone debt crisis. Before Monti steps down, Napolitano wants him to work with other leaders to pass a budget and legislation to improve Italy's finances. Before an election date can be set, Napolitano has to dissolve Parliament before the end of its term, scheduled for April. Carlotta Bradley, The Associated Press.
So there you have it. We have Berlusconi in the mix again, and you're going to see why as I go through this, why I'm giving you this that is so important. So let's now look at some of the things of the past of what Berlusconi has said. Here's one of them. It came out in 2008. History dogs Berlusconi bid to transform Italy. Let me go right down to one of the quotes that he had made. It says, fittingly for the leader of his new party, the People of Liberty, which he calls the Antichrist, he being the king. Now we know that Jesus Christ is the king. We also know from Thessalonians, obviously, that this Antichrist guy is going to consider himself not only a king, but God. But here we have Berlusconi, and there's going to be other places where you'll see this. The Berlusconi is referring himself as king. Now let me move down to another one. Here's an article that came out in 2004. And it's a, look at this article title, All Hail Berlusconi. And the meat of this article, you're going to see it right here. Let me scroll down. I think that I highlighted this for you right there. It says, but it's one thing to be a hereditary king or son king 100 years before the French Revolution, quite another to be the son king. Berlusconi does incidentally describe himself, now get this, as the anointed one from time to time as at the beginning of the 21st century. So not only does he call and refer to himself as the king, but he also, from time to time, as you see from this article, refers to him as the anointed one. Now, who is the anointed one? Obviously, the Bible shows us that it's Jesus Christ, none other than Jesus Christ. And look at the headline here. It says, John Carlin profiles Silvio Berlusconi, a Roman emperor for the 21st century. Now, does this sound like Revelation chapter 17? Does it sound like Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7? When in referring to what we know about the Antichrist, you better believe it. And this is one of the reasons why I am tracking what this man does. Now let me move on to another article to show you there's a little bit more here. Now here is an article that came out in 2006. In quotes, these are Berlusconi's own words. Some of the things that he said. It says that, you can see here in 2006, I quote, I am the Jesus Christ of politics. I am a patriot victim. I put up with everybody. Now get this. I sacrifice myself. And again, who sacrificed for us? Jesus Christ. I mean, there's only one person, one Christ, and there's only one anointed one, and that's Jesus. But yet this man is saying the same things that we're warned about in Scripture. He sacrificed himself. Let me go on here. I think that's the main one that I wanted you to see, where he's calling himself, he's the Jesus Christ of politics. Now let me move on again. All right, this is another another write-up in 2008 about him. Now, keep in mind what I showed you about the man. It's supposed to prosper. The Antichrist will prosper. Whatever he touches, he's going to prosper. Now, in Italy, you can't keep a rich man down, and this is the whole thing. And again, not only do they talk about him, his wealth, but they even mention the fact that he calls himself the Jesus Christ of politics. And I quote, "I am the Jesus Christ of politics," he said in a couple of years ago, and with the second potential resurrection in sight, we should perhaps believe. I mean, they're even talking about this resurrection, almost like, Jesus Christ being resurrected. I mean, there's a lot of overtures here that people will just read this and miss. But if you know what the Scripture says, it really makes you stop and think. Now, at 71, Silvio Berlusconi is now more than twice as old as that Jesus ever was on the mortal core. Age has not withered him. Indeed, in recent months, his hair has thickened and is darkened, and his cheeks have become smoother and pinker. Of course, Berlusconi owes these changes not to divine, but to the medical intervention and perhaps to the careful ministrations of the makeup artist. So we see his appearance as being altered by physicians. And there's some marks in the Scriptures about this man, the way he will be looking. So there's a lot to consider when we're talking about the Silvio Berlusconi. So I wrote a bunch of information here for you as well. You'd be able to go down and take a look at all this information. You'll have all the links there that you'll be able to connect to. And so this is primarily the reason why I'm watching them. Now, in the beginning of the video, I told you, why it is that I'm watching them. Well, if Silvio Berlusconi does, in fact, become the next premier, and we know that in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist will come from Rome, and Berlusconi is from Rome. And we know from the book of Daniel in 9:27 that the Antichrist is going to make a covenant with many for a period of 7 years, right? So what I am saying here, let me go to, you'll see this, Silvio Berlusconi. If Silvio Berlusconi does win the election, if the comeback kid becomes again the prime minister of Italy, then I would suggest that you should be looking for, if he enters in the peace talks fray, which have been failed now or stalled for the past 2 years. If Silvio Berlusconi makes marks about talking peace with Israel and the Palestinians, both flags, the red flag, should go up, and watch what he does. Because if he is the Antichrist, and I'm not saying that he is, I'm just showing you the parallels between Berlusconi's life and what the Bible has to say, and they are running identical to what the Bible has to tell us. He's from Rome, city, he's a Roman. He's saying the things that we were warned about in Scripture. So if he does go and he starts into the peace process, and if he opens up the peace process where they sit down, man, oh man, you better be really paying attention to what's going on. Now, there's always the possibility that he won't get elected and he won't be that influential in the Italian government. But he does have a lot of power, and we should be watching what he is doing just in case he does get elected, and, as I said, if he makes gestures for the peace talks again. And keep in mind, he's very, very close with with Israel. As a matter of fact, one of the articles that I had a while back, I showed you that he even invited the Israelis to have the peace talks in Italy. And I put that on hold because I wanted to see if it was going to actually happen. So now you understand why I'm watching what Silvio Berlusconi does. Now, if he's not the Antichrist, he's certainly shown signs that he's a prelude to what is coming. But we do know is this: at the end of days, and what do I mean by the end of days? I mean the last days. And when the Lord told us of all these things were going to happen, we do know that there's obviously a man that will be coming. He will be arising from the revived Roman Empire. He's going to have power, and he's going to control the world, as we know from Revelation chapter 13, where nobody's going to be able to buy or sell anything unless you have this beast mark. So, just as thought, just as keeping reference to what you know now from Scripture and what the man is doing, all I'm saying is let's keep on the watch and see what happens. And then we'll know for sure based on one event, specifically one event. And that one event will be if he does start to sit down and open up the peace process. That event will be obviously a major event if that does happen. So, God bless, and thank you again for allowing me to come into your homes in this way to connect Bible, prophecy, and current events. God bless you.